hopefully.
All right, welcome, everybody. Want to call to order the Recreation Committee meeting of Wednesday, November 16th, 2022. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the September 28th meeting?
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the September 28th, 2022 meeting.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. And we can move on to our updates. We're going to start with the Groveland Summer Recreation Program.
Should we vote on accepting the minutes?
Oh, did we?
All in favor.
All in favor?
Abstain, I wasn't here.
Sorry on that
Sorry.
one. Now we'll move on to the update on the Groveland Summer Recreation Program.
Thousands of people watching at home going to hear us.
As soon as they
Millions.
give you a mic.
Now.
Well, good evening. I am Matt Castongwe. I'm the program director for the Groveland Summer Rec program. And first, I just want to say how excited we are today or tonight to be in front of the Recreation Committee here in Groveland. We've never have had that opportunity to come in front of you guys. And as someone who grew up in Groveland and played youth sports here in town, and learned a lot and grew a lot through the town rec committee and the sports that were offered. I'm just really excited to be in front of you guys. So this is Maddie. She is the on-site director, so she oversees the operations on the day-to-day basis. Just a little bit of a background. A few years ago, I took a step back from doing the on-site day-to-day operations of the program. That was something that was discussed with me and the Board of Selectmen at the time. So I primarily do all of the planning for the program, the quote behind the scenes, the financials, the accounts payable, accounts receivable, field trip bookings. I'm generally on site a few times each week to check in. Maddie and I are constantly in touch every day, throughout the day, most days, just to make sure that everything is running smoothly. And then Maddie does a great job holding down the fort on site, overseeing our staff on a day-to-day basis. And then, like I said, I'm there to check in a few times a week, and then oftentimes talking and texting back and forth with Maddie each day. So I'll give you a kind of an overview on where we're at for this past summer, and Maddie will talk a little bit about the on-site day-to-day pieces. So a few great things. This was our first year running an 8-week program for the past many years. As this was my 18th year overseeing the summer program. We've always done 7 weeks, but because of the school calendar, the last school year, we were able to include an additional week in June. So we started a little bit earlier in June than we have in the past because of the school calendar, and then we always finish the second week in August to allow time for the custodians and cleaning crew at Bagnell to clean the areas that we use so that the school is prepared and ready for the school year. We had some great positive this summer. We had the most kids attend our program since 2018. So it was great to see the numbers go back to pre-COVID numbers. This past summer, we had 166 registrations for campers and 30 registrations for CITs, which are counselors in training. So we were pretty busy every week, from week 1 through week 8. We had some great events which took place not only on site but off site. So just a little background if you're not familiar with the program. We bring in some shows each summer, such as a magician. Sometimes we've brought in animal shows in the past, musical concerts in the past, and then we go on a weekly field trip. And then we do a big field trip the second to last week of the program, which historically has been either going up to the mountains in New Hampshire or going to Six Flags. And this year we went to Six Flags New England as kind of our big trip of the year. And then we also offer a hot lunch once a week. So our families can order hot lunch for their children, which we do generally on Wednesdays. And that's for a fee, just to cover our hot lunch costs. And then at the end of each summer, we offer a last day cookout or catered event for our campers. As you hopefully know, we have a tremendous reputation, not only within the town of Groveland, but surrounding communities as well, as we do accept children from outside of Groveland, and that's all word of mouth. We don't advertise outside of the town, but being a longtime teacher in the Haverhill Public Schools, that created a nice attendance from Bradford and Haverhill. But this past summer, we had a lot of kids from Merrimack, from West Newbury, from Georgetown. We had a couple children come as far as Amesbury and Methuen. And again, it's all word of mouth outside of the town. So we're really, excited that we have that reputation, not only in Groveland, but outside of Groveland. Through the years, we've been looked at as a model recreation town program, not only in the state of Massachusetts, but across the country. People from as far as Arizona have reached out to me because of the success of the Groveland Summer Rec program and, wanting to replicate what we've been able to do through the years here in Groveland. So with that tremendous reputation, one of the biggest pieces that we focus with our staff is us wanting to keep that reputation going. And we really work hard with our staff. We do a training every June. We do a full orientation every June, and we require all of our staff members to be first aid, CPR, and AED certified in the event of any emergencies. But also they have their basic first aid skills, which is important, we believe, as camp counselors. This past year, we had an on-site assistant director to assist Maddie in the day-to-day operations, and then we also have a front desk coordinator. So with the large amount of children that we have, we need to make sure that we are in a secure facility, and we have a lot of safety rules in place. So the main entrances of the main entrance of our summer program is consistently monitored throughout the day. Our program has generally run for 7 hours, 8:30 to 3:30, and then we've also have offered an after program care for working parents, and that goes until 5:30. This past summer, we had a great staff. Our staff is primarily high school students. We hire ages 16 and up to be counselors, and college age students as well. We have senior staff level who have either gone through college and have graduated with their bachelor's degree, or through the years we've had a lot of teachers be a part of our senior staff as a summer job for them. Just kind of a little bit of the background on planning. Generally, we start planning for the program in December of the summer previously, so it takes, you know, a while to plan for the summer program. We often open up registration in January and or February. Last year, we did do a trial and opened up registration pretty much right after when we ended the program in 2021, and we did some incentives for early registration, and we were really successful in that. This year, we're not doing that because we are in the process of going through licensure as an actual camp now, whereas in the past, we've been known as a recreation program. But because our program has gotten so big and so large, we're now following. We now follow under actual camp regulations and guidelines. So I met with Rebecca about a month ago, and we've had initial discussions on what that would entail. So I've been starting to look at some of those requirements and really utilizing our staff handbook that we have, our staff training that we do, to check off the boxes that we already cover. And then there's a few pretty minor, I would say, additions that we need to do to make sure that we're following the state camp regulations. So that's, I guess, our biggest change for this upcoming summer in 2023 is that we will be under the umbrella of a summer camp rather than a summer recreation program. So again, we're in the process in getting there, and also working with our Board of Health here in town to make sure that everything is being followed and our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed. This year, we did make a pretty big purchase to store our items. In the past, we've always stored our items within Bagnell School in the basement area. We've shared space with the school. This year, we purchased a storage container, which cost over $12,000 to store our summer program items outside of the school, but still that storage container is on school grounds. So Maddie will just discuss a little bit about the day-to-day operations, some field trip, and also overall everything, you know, went positive with our program, with our staff, with our children. We have amazing kids who attend. We have amazing families that support our program. One piece that I think we do need to discuss a little bit is our relationship with the school and the school district, which there were probably, in my opinion, this year was probably the most challenging year since I've been director over the last 18 years with the school and with the school district. In the past, we've really never had many issues, but there were a lot of, I would just say again, challenges that hopefully we can rectify in the future, because we obviously want to have a great relationship with the school and with the school district. But at the same time, you know, it is our understanding that it is a town-owned building through Groveland, and that the town kind of has the right to oversee the operations of the building in the summer. So that's something that we definitely want to look at and just make sure that we're able to continue running the program in the fashion that we have had, because we definitely need indoor space. We're not, you know, a typical sports recreation program where, you know, children are outside playing sports for 2 hours a day. and then go home. As I said, we're a 7-hour program. We offer a lot more than just sports and recreation. We offer arts and crafts. We offer STEM activities for our children, science activities for our children, game space for our children. We offer technology for our children. So we definitely need to make sure that we continue to have access to different areas of the school so that we can maintain the integrity and the quality that we're so proud about. But here's Maddie to talk a little bit about the day-to-day operations.
Thank you. So my name is Maddie. A little overview for you. I've been working at summer camp for 9 years now. This year was my second year as the on-site director. So a couple of things that I wanted to touch on was, like one of my really positive points this summer was the fact that our enrollment numbers went up. Having worked here for 9 years, like I saw those pre-COVID numbers. So seeing them go back up was really nice because it really gave us the opportunity to expand and kind of go back to some of the things that we did. We were able to bring back our dance that we had at the end of the summer, which the kids loved. We had sports tournaments. Having that higher registration number really gave us some more wiggle room with some different activities we were able to do. So that was really nice to have a lot of those things back. And so field trip wise, we went on a lot of new field trips this year, which was super fabulous. I am on site at all of our field trips. I oversee the staff there, do a lot of the, organization with whatever place we're at. So like because we went indoor skydiving this year, so that required, there was multiple, that was a puzzle. That required multiple different groups. There was some groups indoor skydiving, some groups indoor surfing. So it was a lot of time management, making sure that, I had all of my campers where they needed to be so they were all able to, actively participate in everything they wanted to. So, having been on all of the field trips, it was really nice to go on some new ones and really kind of expand what we do normally. Especially, I say to Matt every year, I cannot speak highly enough of Six Flags because they are used to big groups like us. So it is a really nice field trip to go on. Sometimes the places we go to are small, like our indoor skydiving. It was a small building with a lot of kids in it. So it got a little crazy. So, Six Flags is nice because they're so used to having big groups, and our group is not as big as they're used to having. So that is a really nice portion for me. It makes my day a little bit easier. But so as day-to-day operations, as Matt said, I had an assistant on-site director this year who was fabulous. I had a front desk coordinator who was also fabulous. We worked together, the three of us. We started right around this time last year because I think we had already kind of identified what I called the dream team. So the three of us met a few times to talk about, how can we improve our training for staff and, really trying to make some improvements to our day-to-day camp life to try and, make our lives a little bit easier. So, where we offer so many different activities every day, we go outside, we have, Matt was saying, we have art, we have science, we have computer, we have games, we've got a bouncy house, we have a lot of stuff going on. So a massive water slide. So one of the things that, my two coworkers and I worked on was really creating some activity binders for our staff, because the expectation is our counselors are creating activities and kind of running those, when they go outside, we'd like to see them playing games and, really being active and not just going on the playground. And so, that was a really big thing that we worked on this year that I was very happy to see working. So my day-to-day is a lot of overseeing our staff to ensure, we have the correct amount of staff where they need to be. We've got, especially this year, we had a lot of really large groups. So sometimes if there were people out, we did a lot of little staff shuffle if we needed to. So my day consisted a lot of ensuring that was all set for safety reasons, overseeing all of our first aid care, which I always joke that I think I could have an honorary nursing degree at this point, because I am the first aid person at camp currently. I do a lot of training with our staff. I meet with them every morning before our program starts to kind of go over our day where, we said we have a lot of activities, whether it's a magician or, we have a welcome to GSRP party or a scavenger hunt. Like we have lots of different things going on. So I meet with our staff every morning to kind of go over our day. And then we meet at the end of the day to discuss, like how our day went, what we need to be prepared for, going off of what Matt said on top of our wonderful activities. We have a theme day every week. So, I create all of those and then get that moving. We this year brought back our blog, which was super fun, which the parents really enjoyed. I had my front desk coordinator really running that, and I liked it a lot. I think it really kind of got that communication out to parents. It gave them a little bit of a deeper understanding of what we did day to day, because how many children go home and say, I don't know, I didn't do anything today. So, one thing that we worked on is each one of our staff would write a blog weekly, and we would post it for parents to read about things that we were doing, the goings on at camp. I did a lot of our behavioral oversight with campers and our staff, like overseeing and making sure that everything was running smoothly. Really, keeping logs of all of our emails, our calls. I was on the phone with Matt pretty consistently, whether it was texting or a phone call or multiple texts in a row, because sometimes our day gets a little crazy. But yeah, so like overseeing hot lunch, overseeing our CIT program, my day-to-day is very busy, with all of our staff and our campers. And, I've been chatting with Matt and Rebecca and some of our staff, and we're really kind of starting to talk about next year already. And, I've got a small group of my previous year's staff, who I'm calling my dream team. And we are going to, start the conversations about, I know we were talking about our CIT program and how we can really kind of expand on that and how we can expand on our training and just, really kind of improving our day-to-day, scheduling and just how we're running. I think having the input of our staff is really important to myself and Matt. So, getting a group of people together who are able to speak to, they were there this last summer. So talking about our CIT program and how we can improve that, they're really going to have a lot of good input for me because they're the ones who are with the CITs all day. I like to consider Matt and myself as, pretty knowledgeable about camp, but I'm not a counselor. So getting their input is really important to us and it's really valuable. So having that ability is super incredible. And like Matt said, I can't speak highly enough of all of our staff. They are wonderful. They work very hard. So that is kind of our day to day. So.
Questions?
I had a question. What is the age of the children?
So we start at going into first grade.
Oh, okay.
So they have to be entering first grade to start at camp, which I think is 6. I was going to say
Yeah,
like 5 or
6.
6-ish. Yeah,
6,
5,
yeah.
6. And then, so our camp groups goes up to entering 7th grade.
Oh, wow.
After you have your 7th grade year, you come back as a CIT from 8th grade to 16. So they usually enter our CIT program at the age of like 12, 13. So then they would be CITs from 13 to 16, and then hopefully a counselor after that. Yeah, so I just wanted to kind of touch base on what Matt was saying earlier about our relationship with the school as well. You know, having been working at the program for this long, and I went to Bagnell when I lived in Groveland, so I know, I'm super familiar with the layout of the school and the staff, and, you know, it's really nice that, it's a very nice, I'm glad that we're able to use the building, because it really is, it gives us the like perfect space that we need. But I do, you know, having been there every day can really kind of speak to the challenges that we had, and having been there for the last 9 years, having kind of seen that relationship change a bit. This year especially was difficult. You know, there was conflict about what space we were able to use, the things at the school that we were able to use and not use. You know, I try very hard to be very respectful of the space. I know that they're trying to get ready for school. There's a lot going on there in the summer. So, you know, trying to, you know, be understanding, but also, you know, we have a lot of kids and not a lot of space for the amount of kids we have. So if rooms are unable to be used, that really made my day-to-day difficult, because then I'd have to try and find another place for kids to go. You know, if we don't have all of our spaces, it is difficult.
Especially on very hot days,
Right.
you know, rainy days, you need that indoor space.
Yeah, because we have, so our indoor rooms, with the exception of our gyms, are air conditioned. We have portable air conditioners that, you know, because on those really hot days, it's not easy to be outside all day. So not having access to those is really tough, and the kids get very upset about it. And then, you know, along with our storage container, that ended up arriving to the school after camp ended. We had our cleanup day where we have all of our staff, you know, they come in, it's usually on a Saturday. We go through the school, we take all of our stuff, we package it all up, and we put it in the basement. This year, since we did not have our storage container yet, we put it in their small gym, as a temporary storage space until our container arrived. Yep. Was the directions. So we left that stuff there. And then unfortunately, when it came, you know, I really struggled trying to get a group of staff to come and help me move everything. The problem being is a lot of our staff are in college. They are hours away. It's not, you know, I can't say like, well, you need to come home from Florida to help me go and move a water slide, because, you know, it takes a lot of planning, which is why, like, you know, when I'm meeting with my group, it's going to be over Thanksgiving, because I have that they're going to be home. So with a lot of our staff being in college, that provided a lot of challenges trying to get a group to go and move things. So we weren't actually able to go over and move things. I know the school staff had moved most of our stuff into the container. And then we had to move the large inflatables that we have, our very large water slide and our bouncy house, which was very difficult as well. And, trying to schedule that was challenging. I went with my fiance, the two of us went and we moved the slide and the bouncy house, which was very difficult. And the amount of time that we were given made that also really challenging, because it had to be done by a certain time. And, that was kind of a last minute plan, which made my life a little bit difficult. And it was really hard to get a group of people to go and move it, which is why my fiance and I were the ones who went and moved it ourselves, which if you have ever seen our very large inflatable water slide, you know that is not an easy task because it is so big. So that was, really challenging. Luckily, now everything is in our storage container and ready to go. I went over the last couple of weeks and have been inventorying all of our stuff to kind of get account of what we have and, the condition it's in, and just so we have a record of what we have. Especially since we were not the ones to move it. Information that I definitely wanted to make sure we had, that all of our stuff made it from point A to point B since we weren't able to be there.
Thank you.
I have a question
Yeah.
for Matt. Looking back at last year, I know that you had concerns about health concerns going into the year. How did that play out?
I'm sorry?
How did the health concerns play out for the year? I know you had concerns going into the year. You had brought it up to the Board of Selectmen.
With COVID?
COVID, yeah.
We ended up going in status quo as we used to. We had our fair share of illnesses traveling through the camp. A little bit more than past years, but we were able to get through it. And our parents and our families were really good about keeping kids home who were sick and who were ill. But we did have our fair share of sicknesses that went through camp, positive COVID cases. But luckily everything was fine. Again, our parents are amazing, and they really, if the child was sick, they were kept home. If a child became sick at camp, we would make that phone call to come have the child get picked up. Parents were very supportive of that as well. And the few COVID cases that we had, it was the current CDC guidelines were being followed by both staff and families. So the guidelines of what to do during COVID during the summer with the 5-day of quarantine and then days 6 through 10 wearing a mask was followed at camp as well.
Awesome. That's good to hear. Could you touch on the financials? I know you said that you're the one that heads it up and handles that. How did everything look through the year and this year?
Yep, so I can tell you this year we brought in $144,198.61. We did spend $149,841.62, and that was partially due to the $12,000 storage container that we or I didn't budget for the
Understandable.
year. So that put us at a net deficit of $5,643.01 because the storage container was $12,739.
Perfect. And
So
then,
that net deficit will get paid for by registrations for next summer, so we'll end up with zero. And then, so I'll be including that deficit in my budget for this upcoming summer. And then obviously, and everything over and above that will be budgeted for salaries, for field trips, for replacement of games. That's the three primary ways that we spend the registration funds.
yes, and then with the addition of the storage container, is that going to alleviate some of the tensions between you, the school, and the school district?
I would hope that it would. Have them being able to have their quote space back for their own storage. We shared the space, so the school had kind of half of that basement area. We had half of that basement area. But us now, removing all of our equipment and all of our supplies from that, giving them that space back, and really listening to some of the feedback and deciding to purchase that storage container. I would hope that would help.
And
with
tell
some
me
of the
about the storage
relationship.
container, because I know that inflatables was a concern being stored in a storage container outside.
I was told that the storage container that was ordered was weather tight and would keep all of our belongings safe. And that was a big discussion that Rebecca and I had, because about 10 years ago, when we were not storing our items on site, for a couple summers, we were storing them in the storage containers at the highway department, which were not weather tight. So both of those years, we pretty much had to end up throwing away 80 to 90% of what we had and repurchase everything. So it was
Definitely sounds like the
obviously
storage container is going to be a good investment.
a big
Now, in
piece
terms
was
of
the weather tight.
what Maddie said about the space in the school, could you elaborate on that more? What type of spaces were you pushed away from and why?
So we had an agreement going into the summer, like we always do. I, throughout the years, am in communication with the school's administrators or the school's principal, which through the years have obviously changed. And we've always come to an agreement on the space that we would use. So generally, we use the kind of the left side of the school. So that's the new gym, the new cafeteria, that whole hallway into the older part of the school, the small room that we kind of use as an office or a home base, if you will, the small gym, the art room, what is now the old computer lab, the library, and then some classroom space. The challenge was we were originally told that we were not going to have or be allowed to use that space, which we were very concerned over, obviously. We ended up agreeing with the indoor space that we did have to support the number of children that we had this summer. But the challenging piece was the rooms that were agreed upon were often not available to us because they would be cleaning them, doing work in them. So as Maddie said, we were oftentimes scrambling, you know, because we weren't oftentimes told ahead of time. And the agreement has always been in the past that those rooms, we would end camp specifically the second week of August so that they would have the 2 weeks in between to clean the areas of the school that we do use. This year, they actually had 3 weeks in between because of the school calendar. But it was very challenging, you know, being told that we weren't able to use an indoor room when the program's air conditioner is in there. You know, all the portable air conditioners that Maddie alluded to are the program's property. We purchased it out of program funds to ensure that our children had a cool place to go during the day. And we do our best to rotate our groups, so if they're in a block outside, the next block is inside. And oftentimes we had to have double or even triple outside blocks with our kids on some pretty hot days, because some of the rooms that, again, we originally agreed upon were not available to us because they decided to wax the floors or clean the rooms, when in the past they would do that after we had left. Because, you know, many years ago, we're talking, you know, 12, 14 years ago, we had that agreement that we would always end camp the second week in August. We wouldn't go through August to allow for the areas of the school that we did use, allow the custodians to clean that space and get that space ready to for the school year, as that would be the last part of the building that would get cleaned once we did leave. So, you know, that presented some problems, you know, with some dehydration of kids, some overheating of kids that could have been prevented if, you know, the agreement remained in place. We were well aware that there was going to be some removal of asbestos this summer, which Rebecca was great in communicating that with us and keeping us in the loop with that. So, you know, because we knew that ahead of time, we were able to make appropriate plans and make appropriate changes. And the problem was the day-to-day changes that were just flat out told to us that we couldn't use that room that day. And, you know, having to make changes when, you know, often days we have 150 kids there, plus we have a staff of 20-ish, 22-ish, you know, and as Maddie also said, we take safety very seriously. We do a lot of safety training with our staff. They are taught, you know, how to recognize kids that are becoming dehydrated or overheated. So we work hard with our schedule, like I said, to have a rotation of outside and inside blocks for our kids.
And for next year, when do you think you would have an idea of a schedule of what rooms you would want to use?
Generally, we talk in April and May, and we kind of wait a little bit because we want to see our registration numbers and have a pretty good hold on what we're looking like for the year. But generally, it's always been the same since the new addition, you know, was opened. It, as I said, it's the cafeteria, the new gym, the hallway space. So those side doors of the school is our camp main entrance. The small gym, the art room, the computer lab, the library, and generally we've had 2 classrooms. And that has kind of been
And
the
there's-
general.
And there's no other educational purposes those rooms are being used for at that time?
Correct.
So it's
They're-
just for cleaning
they're
and whatnot? 'Cause
empty.
I have the regional school district here, the agreement here. Thank you. And I know that they can't deny us use of the building, but we do have to get permission from the school committee. So maybe it's something that we represent to the school committee since so much time has passed. And maybe that will, if we can do that in conjunction with the principal, maybe we can alleviate some of that tension or cleaning schedules that interfere with the camp.
Yeah, we've never talked directly to the school committee. It's always just been with the administration, and then the administration was kind of the go or the in-between with the district
Yeah,
office.
which is fine, but I'm saying just as a board, since we have a new recreation board, maybe it's something that we can do.
Yeah.
But we need that information from you.
And we obviously, I mean, I want to add too, we obviously want to have a positive relationship with not only the school administrators. I've through the years, I've been, lucky enough to have positive relationships with all the principals that have been at Bagnell in my 18 years. So that's important to me. We obviously want to have a positive relationship with the building administration and with the school district as a whole.
And then the last thing, you said there was some small things that you needed to do to get ready to be at camp. Could you elaborate on that, what they were?
Can you repeat that?
You said that there was some additional small things you had to do to prepare to become an actual camp.
Oh, yes.
And could you elaborate on what those are?
Yeah, so it was brought to my attention during the summer that the Board of Health started talking with Rebecca about our program, and again, it's my understanding that because of the size that we have, that we no longer in the state of Massachusetts, there's an umbrella of a town summer recreation program, and there's rules and regulations that fall under that umbrella, and then there's also a summer camp umbrella. So it's my understanding, and Rebecca could possibly elaborate a little bit on this, but it's my understanding that we now fall under the camp umbrella. So, we need to just make sure that we have official policies and procedures in place. As I said, a lot of them we already do. We have a staff manual of 25 pages of rules and regulations that we have followed. So we already check off some of the boxes. We have to look at a little bit deeper in the requirements for medical. And if we need an actual nurse on site or a medically trained person to kind of oversee the medical piece of the program, the first aid, the distribution of any medications that we may need to give children. As right now, we obviously keep any prescription medication or over-the-counter medication in locked areas, and then any prescription medications, the parents fill out a form for us that not only tells us a little bit of background on the medication, but also to give us permission, written permission to distribute the medication to the child at a specific time at camp. So I know there's a little bit deeper of a health component there. And then again, just making sure that we're following the appropriate rules and regulations. So right now I'm in the process and going through our current manual of procedures and seeing, check, okay, this checks off, and then I'm making a current list of, what we need to do differently to make sure that we're following, everything that's required under that camp umbrella. I don't know if Rebecca, if you have anything to add to that.
No, that's good.
Is this something you hope to have in place by next summer, or is this just whenever it happens, it happens?
No, we have to.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I had one other question just about the number of campers and the number of available spots. And is there any way to know how many people want to be a part of the program who aren't able to be because there's a limit?
We have no limit.
Oh, there isn't?
No.
Okay.
we don't have a limit. So if
Oh.
we're in a situation where, you know, I think, you know, in my 18 years, I do a pretty good job in guesstimating, you know, by April, because we do have a lot of last minute registrations. So we hire our staff by April, and then like this year, for example, we you know had a few more registrations than we planned for, so we just added additional staff.
Okay.
Later, you know, we hired them later.
Perfect, okay.
So we never have a cap. We just hire additional staff to
Okay,
make sure
that's
that
great.
we're keeping our ratios where they need to be.
Right, right.
Because there are rules with, you know, adult to child ratio with younger kids and then with older kids.
Yeah. Okay, great.
When does registration actually close? Is it open like through the start of the program, or is there a date where you say it's closed?
We generally don't close registration. Sometimes we do, like if it gets in June and we're like, you know, we're really heavy in second grade and fourth grade and fifth grade, we'll close grade level registrations if we need to. But also, you know, if we have the room, and again, if we're able to keep our ratios, you know, especially our newcomers, they often, you know, sign up for, we have a 3-week minimum, so they often sign up for the 3 weeks, but then the kids love it, so they, you know, they add weeks, which will allow, again, if space permits. But we have an incentive for people to register because it is tremendous help to us with planning. So generally, after April 15th, we do impose a late registration fee to kind of have that incentive for people to register before that, because a lot of the planning that we do, the staff numbers, the daily schedule, the number of groups that we need, our field trips, the number of buses we need for transportation, you know, is obviously dependent on the number of kids we have. So we do have that incentive that after April 15th, we impose a late registration fee.
And then a quick question for you, Rebecca. Is there any work planned over the upcoming summer at the school that's gonna impact the areas that the camp uses?
I'm not sure the specific areas because I'm not sure of the plan per se, but we did, being the Board of Selectmen, authorize the project to move forward with the drinking water fountains, and I'm not sure exactly what level of impact that will have. But knowing how the camp operates personally this year and knowing that I can communicate with both Matt and Madison, I feel like we'd be able to limit those impacts for those projects now that we understand how it all kind of works. And that was, I believe, in my personal opinion, why we had so many conflicts too. Like the school would just do something without telling us that we gave them the money, but we weren't really, you know, I didn't know Matt that well, and I just started and I just met Madison, so it was kind of like there was a lot of miscommunication. But not anymore.
All right. Any other questions?
Oh, yes. What you just said is both very disappointing to me, and it makes me very angry, because I was there at the beginning when we discussed how many rooms you would have and which rooms they would be. So the first question is, when they came to you and said you can't use this room, it was the day of, and was it for just that day, or was it for an extended period of time?
It was both, a combination of both.
Okay, on Friday is typically your big field trip day, right?
Field trips generally Thursdays.
Thursdays, okay. It's been a few years since all my kids were in the program. So Thursdays, the building is typically, you know, very sparsely populated, would you say?
Correct.
So Thursdays would be kind of a good day to do that stuff, right? Maybe. See, to me, and I'm going to say it because I don't really care, it sounds like this stuff was done intentionally to you. because I was there on the day, and we talked about they were going to do a deep cleaning in the entire school. And they told us how many days it would take to clean each room. And mathematically, I figured out that they could do it without interrupting you one stinking day. And they didn't have just 2 weeks like they thought they had at the end of the school year, because the school year started late this week. So no matter how many times they tried to tell me they only had 2 weeks at the end of your program, they had 3, not 2. So what they're doing sounds to me intentional, and it sounds intentional because there were comments made during that meeting that now, when I think about it, really comes down to really pettiness. Was any child in Groveland refused entrance to your program last year?
No.
Was any child in Groveland ever refused because of space, refused your program?
No.
So when somebody makes a comment that, well, other children come from other towns and enjoy this program, it's really none of their stinking business, is it?
We always put Groveland children in front of out of town children.
Correct.
We've always done that.
And so my point is, no child from Groveland has ever been displaced due to another child from another town, have they?
Correct.
So in that respect, it's none of that person's stinking business where these child come from, as long as no child from Groveland is ever displaced by another child from another town, correct?
Correct. That has always been important to me.
And according to the math that we did, and we were all doing the math, it's not hard math. I mean, we're not talking trigonometry or calculus here when we did this math. It was very plain and simple. They had plenty of time to deep clean every stinking room in that building without interrupting your program one stinking hour. Is that not true? I believe I had a couple of witnesses here. You were with me, and Rebecca was with me. And my math isn't that bad that I could screw up that bad that they would mess up your program for one stinking hour, never mind the day. It is repulsive to me that the school continues to act in this territorial way, that they disrespect our ownership of that building to such a degree that it's incomprehensible. I took a tour of that building downstairs where you stored your equipment. Most of this stuff they stored there was garbage. Absolute garbage. It should have been thrown in dumpsters years ago. But they wanted to use that as an excuse that you couldn't have room to put your stuff. So now we had to spend almost $13,000 to buy a container to put your equipment in because they don't want to share. The first stinking thing you learn in kindergarten, how to share, isn't it? You're an educator, right? The first thing I learned, how to share. I had 2 siblings. I learned it before kindergarten. Why can't this school district learn to share? It's disgusting. It really is disgusting. For the money that your program contributes to that school, you paid for those air conditioners that they were not allowed to use, didn't you? When they broke, where did the money come from? It came from the proceeds for your program, didn't it?
Yes.
A lot of the grounds behind the school that were refurbished to where they're actually usable now came from the proceeds from your program. Isn't that true?
Yes.
So to be treated so unkindly and so unfairly needs to stop. And if we can't push back, I'm telling you, this needs to end. It needs to end. The pettiness needs to end. Okay? These are kids. These are our kids. These are kids that come from our community. These are our children that are being impacted by your pettiness. And it needs to end. Plain and simple. I'm tired of it. I've been living with it for a number of years. My oldest child is 30 years old. That tells you how many years I've been involved in this program. All 18, I've had at least one child in your program for most of the time. I know how instrumental, how vital it is to the people, the parents in this community to have that program so they can work and support their families. And without that, God knows what they would do, how difficult it would be for them.
And we also just so everybody knows, because we're meeting here for the first time, we offer scholarships
Yes, you do.
for families who are, financially can't afford the charge and those scholarships, because I've been a little bit upset because there have been rumors out there that how we handle those scholarships, and those scholarships, just so everybody is clear, is only offered to Groveland children.
The way it should be. And no child should be refused participation in anything because their parents cannot afford it. Somewhere along the line, we can find the money for that kid. And if you can't find the money in your pocket, you call me. I'll write you the check. Because no child should be refused for anything like that because their parents simply can't afford it. It's wrong. That's all the comments I have to make because I'm just so disgusted by what went on.
Oh,
and the
thank you
treatment
for
they've
that.
been had.
Yeah, I mean, I just hearing about the room situation for the first time now. I had all of the same thoughts that he did, so I'm glad that he brought them up the way he did. So I think, is there any way that we can make sure that this isn't happening anymore, and that, like, who is it that needs to be involved, and where we can all just make sure that they have the space they need, which I don't think is too much to ask for. I think.
So,
It's space that they were,
Yeah.
not only the space that they need, the space that they were allocated
Yeah.
at the beginning
Yeah.
of the year, and then unceremoniously stripped away from them without any notification. How can you do that to these kids?
Right.
With all good, how do you go home and look yourself in the mirror at the end of the night?
So moving forward, with the communication that we put in place, with the meetings that we have, with the communication we have with the district, with the plans that we're assembling, these types of situations would not continue. So what happened this past year is a recap, it's a learning lesson. We now know what we need to do. We now know how to get the lines of communication. The year before, they didn't have anybody to report to, the COVID and pandemic and all these other things. So we're still like in this learning phase. Like as much as the camp has been around for forever, it's what we're trying to deal with the back and forth between the Bagnell and the use of the school and making sure that the recreation committee, program has the resources that it needs and is following the regulations. So we are doing everything that we need to do. And it has
But in
been,
my
But with all due
in my
respect, we had
18
this agreement last year, and it was trampled on. It was spit on. Okay, so what assurance do I have now that any future agreement, handshake, nod, wink, wink, will ever be, what's the word I'm looking for? Would ever be, I'm searching
Agreed
for the right
to?
word.
followed through.
Followed through with. What assurance do I have? Because I just witnessed how they just spit all over the agreement we had, and we all came together specifically for that one purpose. And we discussed it ad nauseum that day in that building. I took time away. You took time away. You took time away. What did it mean?
In my 18 years of leading this program, it was the worst that we've experienced.
But we started out in the best place. We started out with a meeting of the minds and had an agreement that this was going to happen. This was your timeline. This is what you could do. This is what we were going to do. And then it doesn't, it's a meaningless agreement if it's not adhered to. So, again, I had an agreement last year, and I guess I didn't. So what assurance do I have if I get any agreement this year that anything different will happen?
And at that meeting, too, you might remember it being said on the district side that they were actually going to have extra help at the Bagnell this past summer because of the new high school opening, that they were going to repurpose some of the high school cleaning staff to Bagnell to assist with the summer cleaning.
Oh, I
there.
do. And I remember asking them, how many days does it take to clean a room? So mathematically, there are an X number of rooms. It's not an infinite number of rooms. Mathematically, the formula should have worked out where they had excess days. Right? Mathematically, it worked out where they had more days to clean that place
We're always
than
in
they were allotted.
one section of the building. It's not like we're spread out throughout the school. We're in one section.
So I have a question and a suggestion. Obviously, I think we all agree that if there's a conflict in the building, the priority needs to be making sure that the kids that are in the program they're not outside if it's 100 degrees and they have access to space and stuff like that. As part of these discussions, which I wasn't involved in, but is there some mechanism in place or some escalation path if there is a conflict that they have the ability to escalate it or get somebody involved that can resolve the situation at the moment, and then we can revisit it afterwards? Because I think the priority needs to be making sure that people are safe and that the space is available. We can deal with the maintenance issues and stuff like that, but there should be some way to handle it in the moment and not wait.
Some of
until
the
it's-
answers that we received was just you can just put all the kids into the gym, for example, or, you know, we're not throwing 75 kids
Sure.
into one gym and having them run amok. That's a huge safety issue. So I personally don't know who that would be.
Yeah, I don't either. I'm
Yeah,
just wondering if
that's
it should
a
be
good
something that should be
question.
discussed.
So we took care of the issue after everything happened. I've had a long conversation with the superintendent, not the principal, who doesn't own the school, as you all just stated, not Principal Day. We talked specifically with Dr. Bartholomew, and we said what we needed to say in order to reiterate the needs of the camp and that it is the school. So I feel as though, based upon the situation that we've experienced, just this past year, we have taken the proper steps and gone to the proper authorities, because essentially, who's his boss? And we've made it clear of what our intentions are to utilize the building that we own per the leased agreement, per doing everything per protocol. And I feel as though moving forward, we now have that in place. So before we were getting the runaround, go to this person, go to that person, talk to the facility person, talk to the principal, now we're not getting that. Now we know exactly who we need to go to and what we need to do and how we need to assert ourselves in our building.
And, I'm sorry, did I miss who that is?
So, I mean, it's a combination. I mean, at the end of the day, we can yell all we want. It's a partnership between the school. The school is the school. I mean, 77 kids are how many kids that we see on a daily basis at a Bagnell school. We need to be very careful about how we address this in terms of the relationships that we have with the school. So I think that it's not just about saying, well, you know, pointing fingers and getting upset, but trying to problem solve. Let's actually do something and let's actually make it better. And I feel as though we've taken those strides. And is it perfect? No, it's not perfect. Should it have happened? No, it shouldn't have happened. But I think that we are taking the proper steps to make sure that in the future that we can coexist peacefully and make sure we have a successful camp, the school is taken care of, and we're doing what we need to do.
So I guess though, what I want to know and what I kind of want to see is if they run into a situation next year where they're going to use a space and they walk in and someone is there cleaning and they say, nope, sorry, you can't use this space. Are they going to have someone to call that's
Right.
going to be able to call that person, that maintenance person or janitor or whatever, and say, you need to leave that space alone, it's theirs? Will they
Yes.
have a name and a phone number to call?
Me. And I did do that on a couple of occasions, and we went physically down to the school personally myself, whether it be a weekend or not, and tried to
Perfect.
take care of the thing. So it was something in the beginning that was not necessarily happening, but we are now taking those strides to make sure that they know that they don't have the authority to tell us.
And I mean, Rebecca has been a huge asset in forming that partnership. And, you know, I hadn't known that you had that conversation with Dr. Bartholomew. But, you know, knowing that line of communication is open makes me feel a lot better in ensuring that, you know, again, the rooms that we've used for 18 plus years, in the rooms that we agree upon, you know, the spring prior to that summer, we have access to, you know, throughout the entire summer. And, you know, having a true point person now too with Rebecca, where that also has been lacking, or was lacking prior to Rebecca's arrival. Having, you know, me as the director who oversees the program have one contact at town hall, who can also have that communication with the district if needed, I think is important and something that is definitely an improvement to what we've had in the past.
Okay. That definitely answered my question, because I didn't feel like I was getting that answered either. But yeah, that's fantastic. Okay. Are we all set with that part of the agenda? We'll move on. Next, we are on to the Pines Recreation Area update.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Maddie.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so
Thank
much.
you very
And
much.
we hope to come in the spring before the program to kind of give you a preview to summer 2023.
And January is when it opens? The
Registration?
Registration?
We hope to
Definitely
open
January?
it in January.
All right, all
Yep.
right. I got to get right on there then.
Thank you.
Yeah, the Pines.
So we just have a couple of updates. The dog park is supposed to be officially completed by December 15th. But the contractor said pending weather, it could be more December 20th, but we are hoping that that will officially be completed and open in December. We did, and you as the chair can speak to this, have the conversation with the Board of Selectmen regarding the irrigation wells. The highway superintendent went before the Board of Selectmen to express his concerns about not irrigating the fields or waiting to find more of a solution about drafting from the river. So we have contacted a company that is going to be able to, not douse, but they're gonna do testing pits, or not pits, what were they?
I forget the word too.
There's something, they're more involved and they provide better results about what's available in the aquifer. So they're actually gonna do that testing to see exactly if we were to go through a well, we could do that. And I think that that was something the Board of Selectmen was favorable towards, not just eliminating the irrigation in its entirety. Was that your sense?
Yeah, definitely. Do we know when that's going to happen, the testing?
So I'm looking at a couple of quotes. So I just got a
Okay.
quote in just this evening, and it was about $5,000, which is fairly reasonable for the work that they were looking to perform.
Yeah, definitely.
And then the last item that we had mentioned, you had brought up, so
Yeah.
I'm eager to help.
Just as a parent in town and knowing, lots of parents that bring their kids down to the playground at the Pines, there is nowhere for parents to sit and rest while their children are playing. So I didn't know if that was something, that would be open for consideration to having some benches placed there. Inside the fencing, because I know there's, picnic benches right outside, but there are parents with smaller children who don't necessarily want to be that far away.
We can definitely look into some options and get some pricing and figure out what we can do.
Okay.
Might we be able to contact Whittier and see if somebody, or the Boy Scouts, see if they would take it on as a project?
We did just recently reach out to Whittier for an order of a couple of benches, so we can figure out whether or not they would fit into the park. I know there's the turf there as well. For a logistical standpoint, I'm not too sure how the base and the bottom need to be situated, but if there's room, then we can certainly consider using those for sure.
Who are those Eagle Scouts that built the Adirondack chairs that went around the library here?
Which ones?
There was an Eagle Scout, and one of his projects was to enhance the outside of the library, and he actually built like a bunch of these Adirondack chairs, if I said it right, as part of the project. So I wonder if there's a scout out there that's looking for his, Masters or Eagle Scout that
I
might
did
be-
have a contact over at Groveland Congregational Church, I believe, and they had one of their scout, I don't know how the numbers work, but they had a group. So maybe I'll reach out to him and see if there's somebody who's looking to graduate up to the Eagle Scout and needs a project.
It might be a win-win. They might be looking for something, and we're looking for something.
That's a great idea.
I can ask.
Like that.
Thanks. Every now and then I come up with a good.
That's why we keep you around.
Yeah.
Anything else on the Pines? Moving on to Elm Square.
So we just had two updates. One was just from a recreational open space standpoint. The Board of Selectmen is currently talking about hiring an arborist to look at the pine trees. Right.
They're elms.
Elms.
Liberty Elms.
Pines.
Not the pines.
Elm, but the elm trees, Selectman Parento mentioned that he was concerned about the condition, and we were talking about trimming them and whatnot. I'm not sure exactly what the final end product will be, but I know that the highway superintendent had reached out to a couple of firms. It's quite expensive to have an arborist just give you an assessment, not even perform the work, so it's getting a little not as ideal. of a solution, but we're looking into it. So I just wanted to keep the committee apprised of it as a recreation open space area.
Unfortunately, I don't know if you all know, they took quite a beating during a winter storm a couple of years back. We lost a lot of limbs, and it was really kind of sad to see some of those trees. They're beautiful trees. So a lot of that is kind of the consequences or the byproduct of that bad storm, I think.
And then the last one was just to let you know that we're going to be moving forward with a holiday lights down in Elm Square. We've been trying to do a little bit more from a community standpoint in terms of providing some type of community-oriented like things. Just so we were talking about like getting Pumpkin Fest back and all of the good work that they've done with Groveland Day, and just, you know, decorating for certain things, putting the flags out for Veterans Day, and doing little things like that that people take pride in their community, and they're glad to come home and see something that's, you know, friendly and inviting. And so we were going to put lights down in the gateway, which was the commons into the community, and we were going to light the tree trunks, and we were looking at obviously doing the, what is it called? Today is not my day. A gazebo. So we light the gazebo already. So we're looking to continue to light the gazebo. The highway was still going to do their tree, but adding the additional lights. And then there was talks of potentially adding a placemaking is the word I'm looking. Placemaking type of thing where you can stop and take a picture, and like one of those little ornaments and things like that, and very festive, and getting people to stop downtown and be a little bit more involved in their community instead of just driving through it, and just kind of making people slow down and maybe stop and get out of the car. So we're looking at doing all of that, but definitely moving forward with the lighting of the trees and adding a little bit more of vibrancy to the area.
Was there just talk of like one little area for them to come and take a picture, or?
Yes. Well, like, I mean, there'd be like one like focal point.
Right,
Like you
right,
could
right,
sit
right,
in
yeah.
the gazebo, or you could sit in like a big ornament and
Yeah.
do something like that, or like a chair of some sort.
Yeah. I should know if there was maybe like, if it was more, it would be more attractive to people. Like, they would notice it and then be like, oh, I want to go there, you know?
Well, we were talking about also including like other areas in town, like, you know, VZ Memorial Park, and like, you know, down by the sledding hill, and, you know, making like a square and a photo, and like something that was like festive of some nature that somebody would want to go and stop, and like
Yeah.
trying to find other areas like at the Shanahan Field or something that would just, you know, kind of get people out into the community. But
Yeah, yeah.
if there was more maybe congregated in one area, that might be preferred as well.
Yeah, I think so. Especially at Elm. I think that would be nice there. All right. That it?
And then we just, for the Elm Square, yes.
Yeah, okay. And community trail update.
So we are nearing completion. We have at least 2 other outstanding items. There's some thermal painting, and then we did order the kiosk to go on the actual markers, but they have not arrived yet. So we're looking at final completion in the spring. However, we are trying to arrange a soft official opening, if you will, and do something official the first week of December. I'm just trying to get the logistics together. Once I get all of the logistics together, we'll put together a flyer, and we'll be sending it out to all the residents and all of the individuals who were instrumental in making the project a success, such as Mike Davis and Mike Dempsey, and even, you know, seeing if Denise Demkowski, the former town finance director who helped initiate the process, would come back, and reaching out to Senator Tarr and some of our other legislative delegation, and Mass DOT, of course, the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, and a bunch of folks, to, including the engineers, Elise Dionforno with Stantec, and just having kind of like a formal gathering. So when we get more details, I'll certainly share that with the committee as well.
And the trail maintenance plan.
So we're still working on trying to figure out exactly what. I know Karen had reached out to Principal Day about organizing the cleanup that they had with the 4th grade class. I'm not sure where that stands. But we are trying to look at some of our other trails. I know Jason had mentioned the one over at Wood Street, and we had also just seen that there was a dedication done in one of the trails, and it actually looks really great right now. Which one was that? On the Newburyport side?
I believe that was the state trails that the one on Wood Street actually
Turns into?
turns into.
So that was done, and then as we near completion and official opening of the trail, the community trail, we're looking at figuring out next steps in terms of maintenance and how that's all gonna occur with the highway department volunteers, and whether or not there's gonna be any additional funding from the Friends of the Community Trail, or whether or not we're gonna initiate a different process where there can be donations or sponsorships or anything of that nature to help with those efforts. So, that's something we're also trying to take a look at, and any ideas and or feedback, and maybe I know it's been a long night with the camp discussion, but maybe we put it back on the agenda and have a little bit more of a further conversation. I know the Board of Selectmen at their last meeting had asked for an update, and so I'd started to work with Mike Dempsey in putting together a PowerPoint of exactly where we are, how far we've come, and kind of answer some of their questions. Like some of it was, like, is there going to be a bathroom? Well, obviously, we're not going to put bathrooms along the trail, or porta potties, or anything of that nature. They asked about parking. We have identified a couple of parking locations, one that was originally already part of the plan, another being over by SD Lumber on the other side on town property at the water pump sewer station. So you're looking at 6 spaces there, and then we're talking about the CPC project for the Shanahan Field and making that parking, and that's in clear vicinity of the trail as well. So updating them on that, but then we get into questions of maintenance. Well, who's going to maintain the trail? Who's going to plow the trail? Who's responsible for the trail? Then about trash and, you know, all those other types of questions that people will have. So we've started to assemble that PowerPoint presentation for the Board of Selectmen. And obviously we would like to share and get your feedback before presenting to them on that matter as the Recreation Committee.
Any other things that anyone needs to discuss?
Just getting back to the trail maintenance, have you looked into something similar to like, Adopt a Highway? Where people could adopt certain sections of the trail and be responsible for that? Or have you reached out to our friends, our newfound friends over at A.W. Chesterton, who are always looking to, for community activities for their employees to do? Maybe they would be willing to adopt a section of it near them that they would maintain on a continuing basis.
We didn't mention an adopt a space or whatever, like a section, which is an interesting concept that definitely is worth exploring a little bit more of. But we have talked about, and Mike Davis can speak to this specifically, mile markers and sponsorships and sponsoring certain, and advertising, I believe. But I don't want to speak for you, Mike.
Yeah, other towns have, every 10th of a mile, you have a granite post or a wooden post with a little name plaque of a business. And you can sell different mile marker sponsorships. So I think it's a 2-mile trail, right? So 19, 20 different posts. So you could theoretically raise a few $1,000s a year just with that. One open question is a bank account, a friends group versus using this committee to solicit and kind of gather the
Oh,
funding.
yeah.
And then distribute the funding back to maintenance. The Friends group and the volunteer effort up to this point and handing it off more to Rebecca and the town. Certain people have moved and it's been a struggle to get, people's professional commitments and whatnot
Right,
to
right.
get that group fully going. So it would be good if this committee could serve more as a central role to organizing, collecting, distributing, funding, and fundraising, Facebook pages and websites to build a voice and an ability to raise awareness and collect funds. So these are all things that are still up in the air. So once the trail's done, I think it'll be a good time to regroup on that. So if next agenda, we want to revisit that. And there's a lot of things that we've discussed over, 7, 8, 9 years of this effort with a lot of Chesterton. They, I think their guidance to us was they're happy to donate people power
Yes.
to doing cleanup and town activity on the trail, but not money.
Yeah, we've had that.
Okay,
So, yeah,
that's helpful.
but
Anyway,
a lot of person power to,
what about community service for the high school students?
We do that. I think it's all about organizing and logistics, really. I mean, we got to put a plan in place about, regular maintenance duties. What would regular maintenance look like?
Yeah.
What is needed, and then kind of back into it that way, so that we can make sure that what we do is not just a one-time thing, that there's consistent care and maintenance associated with such. And I think like what we're running to a lot with the fields and stuff is that volunteer groups, they come in and they do amazing things and they take ownership and it's great, but like not that it dies off, it's just you have lives, you have things that you need to do, or your kids grow out of the system, or just things like that. So once that happens, then that's when the neglect comes into place. And so identifying what it is that you're providing and understanding that and letting the town try and make up for that and fill in those holes makes it a little bit more so that it won't, it won't get too bad. Like, because there's a limited resources that the town has too. So there's got to be kind of a collaborative effort in trying to meet in the middle of, fundraising and outside donors or a plan like having Adopt a Section or something like that where you're constantly, associated with such, other than just relying on a volunteer basis, because it's never forever, unfortunately, although very much appreciated.
This may be a stupid question, but the adopt a space thing, is that just to collect money, or does that mean that person is responsible for?
I think you're saying they're responsible for it, which would be interesting.
Yeah, you see it on the commons where, Noonan has their
Yeah,
sign.
yeah.
And the girl comes by with
Yeah.
the truck and she waters all the plants. They own that spot. And they own it with pride, and they put their name on it, and it's always pretty, and it's always full of flowers, because they've accepted ownership, and now that is a reflection upon them, right? So when they take ownership of things like that, they really tend to make sure that it's really done nice, because that's their brand they're trying to promote, too. But now, to Mike's question, would that require us voting on creating a revolving account for a place for these funds to go and then be dispersed from?
So that was kind of the conversation we had, as Mike alluded to, there was some concern about keeping up the Friends group and all the maintenance that would be required for the volunteers to put in, and having their own families and work and employment and things of that nature, making it difficult. And that, like Groveland Day and like we're doing with some of the recreation field maintenance and some of the other types of things, creating a revolving account that could solely provide for the future maintenance and upkeep as needed, in addition to whatever the town can offer, would help provide that support that would be needed.
I know we don't see eye to eye in certain things, but we'll just let that slide right now.
Anything else on the trail maintenance? Anything else at all that anyone has to mention, bring up?
Are there any other ideas for beautification, benches, other trailheads, murals, art, like other things you see on other trails? Has the town thought about?
So we've talked about it. We've talked with the Pentucket Arts Foundation. They recently partnered with us for a mural on the Water and Sewer Department building, and then also for a mural that was done on Main Street. They are willing to partner with us and do something along the trail. Like we had mentioned with the benches, we had talked about, there are benches that are already in place on the trail. But we had talked about other types of trailhead locations and expanding upon that, especially with some of the off-trail segments that you can get to from the community trail, and adding to that. So we have identified certain locations and certain potential projects, but we haven't necessarily locked anything in. And from an arts perspective, like I said, we've been really successful working with the Pentucket Arts Foundation, so it'd be nice to kind of cultivate that relationship as well.
I think that's it for the agenda. Do we want to talk about the meeting for next month now? Or is it after the adjournment?
I would do it now.
Okay, so I'm proposing that we push our next meeting off until January, since our next meeting will fall right around Christmas time. It will be difficult for others. Is that,
So it would be the last weekend in December, last week in December, so school vacation and whatnot. We talked that there might be quorum issues, people out with their kids.
yeah.
So can we propose a date right now?
Sure.
First week, I'd suggest to avoid, because it'll probably be hectic right after New Year's.
Yeah.
And
It would normally be what,
The 26th.
26th of January?
Yep,
Thursday? Is that right?
25th, right?
25th.
26th is Wednesday.
25th, 26 is
Oh,
Thursday.
Wrong
I'm
year?
in January.
2023.
Yeah, January 2023.
25th.
2022.
So January 26th, the Thursday?
25th.
That would be the
Yeah.
25th Wednesday.
I think that's all right.
25th.
Wednesday, yeah, the 25th.
Wednesday, the 25th.
Yes. 7:30?
Yeah, try not to stack the meetings together for me. It's been a long stinking day. I don't have to tell you.
I've been
gonna say.
handled.
All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
To adjourn at 9:07 p.m.
9:07.
Oh, come on, somebody second it, will you,
Second.
please.
Thank you. And what do I say after that?
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All righty.
Thanks, guys.
Chris can go home and watch the game.